Well, you couldn't join the African National Congress unless you were an African. You couldn't join the Indian Congress unless you were an Indian. You couldn't join the South African Labour Party unless you were white, but you could join the Communist Party, and that's what I did.
The Communist Party was open to anyone.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's where I found my home. And I told you how I got into the party. I was working for a solicitor's firm in Johannesburg, and next door to me, in the office next door, was a very, very nice young lady called Goldie. Remember I showed you the book she gave me for my birthday? And Goldie's parents were Polish Jews, and they were the workers' club. It was a workers' club, a Jewish workers' club in Johannesburg. So Goldie said to me, Patsy, Reverend Michael Scott, he was an Anglican vicar, he's speaking at the drill hall the next afternoon. Why don't you come? Let's go to the meeting. So here I went to the meeting with Goldie, and I listened to Reverend Michael Scott. Absolutely moved me, made me open my eyes, because I wasn't that political at that time, you know. And the next week, Goldie and I joined the YCR. And I was thinking, a man of God got me into the Communist Party. Interesting, isn't it? He was the forerunner of Trevor Huddleston. Wonderful person. He was deported as well. Trevor Huddleston was deported as well. You had to, in the Communist Party, 3 things you had to do, absolutely, without fail. Pay your dues, sell the newspaper, and go to study classes. You had to do those 3 things, or you couldn't be a member. So one day, they said to me, we were studying Emma Burns, Body's Marxism. He was an English Marxist, and his book had just come out, his magazine, Body's Marxism. It said, Patsy, you're going to have a job. You're going to go out to taking 4 or 5 young Indian people, young Indians from the YCL, out of London, out of Johannesburg, and you're going to study what is Marxism. So and then after that, so we met. I told them all, we're all going out to a place called Witpoortjie. It's about an hour from Johannesburg. We're going to get the train. I will meet you at Park Station. I will go in the white carriage, and you go in the black carriage, because they're all young Indian boys. And we'll all get off at Witpoortjie. Then we'll walk towards the forest, and we sit under the tree with your sandwiches, and we'll study what is Marxism. And I was just one step ahead. I didn't know that much, but I was one step ahead of them. I wasn't, but we all studied Marxism. They were all quite young. I felt I knew more than they did. In fact, there's somebody in London who still remembers coming with me. He remembers coming with me on that outing. He remembers coming, Paul George says, I always remember that outing as I went. So after we studied, we sat there for about an hour, had our sandwiches, and then we had to get the train back. I got in the white carriage, they got in the Indian black carriage. When we got off at Park Street Station, Johannesburg, we had to walk for about 15 minutes to get to the Johannesburg West branch of the Communist Party, which was in the Indian area, Fordsburg. So I said, when I walk down the road with you and people stop and say, why are you walking with these black children? Tell them I'm your Sunday school teacher. And I'm teaching you about God, that might be acceptable. But nobody stopped us. Off we went to Chancellor House. Underneath there was an Indian cafe, so we bought them samosas. We went upstairs, and they liked music, so I bought some records. This was bribery, a little bit of politics and some music. They were quite young, so we played some nice little music. Then I said, at 5 o'clock this afternoon, somebody's coming from the Communist Party to talk to us about the passive resistance campaign that was going on. So we'll hear all about it. So 5 o'clock, in comes somebody to tell us And that was, who do you think? Vela Pillay. And he was absolutely astounded. He didn't have any notes. He knew everything. Everything just came out clever, clever, clever. And I didn't think much of it. Then that's the first time I set eyes on Vela. I didn't think anything would last. He said he thought to himself something might be going on. I didn't know that. The Indians in South Africa decided to go on what they call passive satyagraha, passive resistance campaign. It means you get arrested and you don't fight back. You don't lift your hand. So it's based on Gandhiism. So all the Indians in Durban went on a passive resistance struggle. And they recruited people from Johannesburg, and Vela was a Transvaal Indian. Remember, Transvaal Indians couldn't live in Natal. They had to have a permit. You know that. So he had to have a permit to be in Natal, and he went for 2 weeks and got arrested on the beaches of Durban. They went there one day by arrangement with the police authorities. The Transvaal Indian Congress said, we're going to send 10 people tomorrow morning to a beach in Durban, and they're going to sit on a bench marked for whites only. And that's what Vela did. Sat on the bench with whites only. The police came along, arrested them, and off they went to prison for 2 weeks. But Vela told me he had quite a nice time in prison. He said the Indian ladies made them curry every day, and they sang songs. So he seemed to think it was all done like a gentleman's agreement. No fighting, no nothing. You just got into the police van, went to jail for 2 weeks, and then you were let out. That was the campaign against the Indians who didn't have the vote. I'll tell you, in 1946, when I was a member of the Communist Party, at that time, I was living with Ruth. I was sharing a flat with Ruth, and I was a secretary at the Johannesburg branch of the Communist Party. You've got the photograph, haven't you? That photograph on the platform. 1946, the black miners had a strike. So what we did, we cyclostyled, we duplicated all the leaflets, and the men went out in the evening to the mines and gave the leaflets out to the mines in the morning. So there was a lady living in the suburbs of Johannesburg, and Ruth and I used to go and duplicate all the leaflets that we printed and give it to the male comrades, and they would deliver them to the mines. And one day, in 1946, the police were, the Communist Party wasn't banned, but only banned in 1950 something. The Communist Party was banned in 1953, I think. But it was the Communist Party was quite legal to be a member of the Communist Party. So I was in the party at that time. It was upstairs, and Dani du Plessis was an Afrikaner who became secretary of our Johannesburg district. And he said to me, Patsy, he looked out of the window and he said, look, Patsy, the special branch outside. Quickly, take the membership and forms and go. So that we had the membership. They didn't have an enormous membership in Johannesburg, you know, the Transvaal. So we had like a library pouch. So I grabbed put them in a shopping bag and walked. We were on the 4th floor, walked down the stairs. When they came up the stairs, they didn't find it. Because they would have had all the names, they've had all the names of the members of the branch. But later on, when the party was banned, they got the membership for some reason. I don't know how they got the membership for all the communists, and they were arresting Communist Party members for being members of the Communist Party. We'd gone already, 1953. To be a member of the Communist Party, you went to, you know, you had to do something. If you gave out leaflets and you were a member, you had to go to jail. Jails were full of people who were members of the Communist Party. So I saved them.
Why did they not stop you when you were walking down the stairs?
Well, they came up in the lift. And who's going to stop a white lady who looks innocent with a shopping bag, Woolworths or something? Okay, bazaars. You know, I was walked down the stairs, and they came up. I think they would have stopped me as well. I mean, they didn't stop whites, you know. If I was black, they would have stopped me, but I was white. You got away with it. If you were white, you got away with it. If you were white, you got a job as a policeman, even though you couldn't, even though you were illiterate, completely illiterate. If you were white, you got a job as a policeman. Can you imagine the police force? Can you imagine? There's a joke, you know, about this policeman. He found a horse had died, and he had to write a report. The horse died in a street called Wallater Street, and he couldn't spell Wallater, so he dragged the horse to Fox Street so he could spell fox. True story. True story. You know the other one I told you about this Englishman was in Cape Town and he went over the red lights. This Afrikaner came up, Afrikaans policeman came up and said, "You went over the red lights. When you're in Rome, do what the Romanians do." You've heard that one?